Most drip coffee machines can't make pour over, until now. Before we talk about this machine, let's try the coffee I just brewed on it. It really does taste like a hand-brewed coffee. All of the steps in the process taste awesome. Be sure to stick around and we'll show you the recipe I used and how to brew this coffee yourself. So let's talk about the design of this machine. First off, I love its small footprint. We're about like 11 inches by 11 inches on the bottom, so it really fits in a lot of spaces. Where it sacrifices that small footprint is by being really tall. This machine is about 17 inches tall, so you want to be sure that your cabinets are not going to be too low, or at least in a spot where you can easily move it forward and backward for your daily brewing. Secondly, in overall design, I just think it looks really cool. It is sleek and really subtle. When I was trying this machine out at home, I tried it out in a couple of spaces and it really just blends into the space where it's put, so it can go pretty much anywhere. I personally really appreciated that. Let's get into some of the features now. This machine is so feature rich. First off, there are customized drink profiles. So if you're a big coffee nerd like me and you like to brew each coffee differently, maybe 4 pours, maybe 3 pours, maybe at a slightly different ratio, you can use the app to pre-program those recipes to exactly what you want them to be. Getting into everything that this machine can control, we can influence things like the grind size, the water brewing temperature, the pouring pattern, the number of pours. It gives you control over every aspect and decision you would make when making hand-brewed coffee. When I'm mentioning profiles, it's more coffee to coffee profiles. So for each coffee that you're brewing, you can set up a recipe that's gonna brew that coffee super well, and you get to make the decision for yourself whether you wanna set it up as a light, medium, and dark roast profile or super custom for each coffee you're making. Breaking apart the individual components of this machine, the grinder is actually pretty exceptional. Its grind range goes from espresso fine all the way out to cold brew. Say you wanted to use this machine but with your flare setup. You can grind the coffee over here, or say you're getting ready to make some cold brew in the summer. This machine is capable of that, as well as grinding for your daily coffee. Another component that I'm really excited about is the included scale on this. A lot of times when I'm helping people out in store, I always recommend a coffee scale and I get the response, "Oh, I'm not fancy enough for that yet." But a scale is so helpful in creating consistency and really influencing like your recipe control. This scale I found very satisfying and accurate to 1/10 of a gram, which is perfect for coffee brewing, and accurate across the entire base, which was really nice. One drawback with the scale that I have personally is that it can be a little bit awkward to access the dosing cup, as we have the machine physically in the way, so when you're pouring in from your bag of coffee, you sort of have to shift it around to find a way that works best for you. To add to the convenience of this machine, xBloom actually has a market on their website where you can buy pre-dosed coffee pods, where you can just scan a card and then it'll run a program set by the roaster. Something that I really like about the flexibility of the xBloom Studio is that it can also use whole bean coffee. This means I get to do my favorite coffee from my favorite roaster and set up recipes for myself. It's really fun and something I enjoy. Getting into the pros on this machine, it is super customizable and fully flexible with barista control. These are things that I really like on it. From the recipes to just being able to reflect on the data of how your coffee is brewing. I think that that's super cool. Another aspect that I really enjoy on this machine is the ability to share the recipes you create on the xBloom app, or if you need inspiration, you can source recipes from other baristas and roaster recommended recipes using the xBloom from the app. One big feature that I love on this machine is its convenience. Because I like hand brewing coffee, I am resistant to a machine doing all of that automatically for me. But hand brewing coffee takes time in the morning that you don't always have. One of my favorite stories when I was testing this machine is there was a day when I had a meeting at 7 a.m. and I slept until 6:50. I was not my best, most awake self at that morning and really needed to just get ready for a Zoom meeting and just be ready to roll. This machine allowed me to press go on the coffee brewing cycle, make my meeting on time, and then do a quick 30-second mute of my video when I grabbed my coffee when the app told me it was ready. It is a lifesaver and a game changer for making your morning routine flow super smoothly. Getting into the cons of this machine. When I was first testing this machine out, the app was absolutely essential to brewing. You can use the little switches on the front to access features on the machine, but I found the brewing process really clunky and not particularly satisfying to engage with. However, using the app made that a lot easier and more clear. As of filming today, we've done a firmware update, so you can actually put this into an auto mode. So for daily use, no longer requires an app. This makes this machine way more usable in the daily routine and is a big win in my opinion. The second con I have is in how much control you have over your brew. From making decisions on flow pattern and temperature, grind size, ratio. This is a lot of information for somebody who might be fairly new at making hand brewed coffee, and it can feel overwhelming. The good news is that there are recommended recipes on the app, so that way you can kind of skip through that process, and then when you're ready, you can engage with the more advanced features of this machine. The final thing that I have a small issue with is that I wish this machine could brew at a higher temperature. Now, it brews plenty hot enough for recommended coffee settings, but for me personally, I like machines to be able to exceed the recommended expectations, so that way I can sort of temper down and have a little bit more full control and flexibility, and I just don't have that on the high temperature side of this machine. Now, let's check out that recipe that I brewed up earlier. Because this machine is app controlled, I've got my phone out so that way I can engage with the process and do the whole thing on this machine. So I'm gonna be brewing up a cup of our Killer Natural Africa. This version is a natural processed Ethiopia Guji. It's super berry forward and I'm really excited to brew it. This is a lighter roasted coffee, so I really like my 4-pour recipe that I've set up to lengthen the brew time a little bit and really pull out the more nuanced flavors. The first step of the process is that I'm going to use the scale on the xBloom to make sure that my dose of coffee is accurate. So I'm put it into scale mode using my phone here. And we are there, fully tiered out and ready. My recipe uses 15 grams of coffee. So we're gonna measure that first. I need scissors. Sweet. Now, one thing that I find a little bit frustrating about interacting with the scale is our grinder tower can sometimes get in the way. So I'll remove the brewer for now, so that way I can pour on this side of the scale. A little bit over. Just right, perfect. Now that I've got my coffee dosed out, I'm gonna open up the recipe on my phone and get this whole process started. Before I start the recipe, however, I'm gonna make sure that I have everything in place. That includes the brewer and my cup. I've had a couple run-ins where I've almost forgot to put a cup underneath this machine and spills, and I have to wait longer for my coffee, which is no fun at all. Cup in place. And now I'm gonna pull up my 4-pour recipe. So from this point, now that I got the recipe ready, I'm going to press start, and it will prompt me to add my coffee to the grinder. And now we are ready to brew. Let's go. just love that it moves back and forth on its own. It's so cool. I really like using the spiral pour pattern because it really evenly distributes the water out, particularly in the bloom where I really want to be sure that all of the coffee grounds get wet before we actually start the true brew process. Something else that I really appreciate when this machine is brewing is the water output against brew output graph that it shows on the app. I just love that, like, the data portrayal there. The imagery is really cool and just thorough for reflecting on the brew process. For this single cup brew, I'm estimating this is going to be about 3 to 5 minutes. That's the typical time for this recipe. Of course, it's customizable based on your own preferences. I will say, one of my favorite things about pour over is being able to take the time to be super mindful, but I don't have time for that every day. So sometimes when I had this machine at home, it was great to kind of put it on autopilot while I went and did the rest of my morning routine while my coffee was brewing, and could still come back to that really clean cup of coffee as if I'd brewed it myself. So excited to try this coffee out. Going through the usual coffee tasting stuff here. Fun kind of brown sugar note that I haven't smelled in this coffee before, against a little bit of like a rich kind of mixed berry jam. We'll give it a slurp. Yeah, that's it. Super sweet profile here. Medium to medium high acidity with a surprisingly full body, and rich and jammy. This has been one of my favorite new coffees that we've had in our retail store, so I'm very excited to give it a feature in this video. One of the things I really like on this machine is how easy and straightforward it is to clean. Our brewer is set magnetically, so it's easy to pull out. You just take this over to the trash can and give it a rinse, and you're free of coffee. The drip tray is fully removable, so that way you can give it a dust down and empty any drippings off in the sink. I actually really like the splash guard. It makes transition and carries really straightforward. Although I will give you a heads up, it's shallow. Don't spill too much in there, otherwise it can be a little bit difficult to manage. The only other major cleaning thing is just be sure that you keep your water tank nice and clean. I'd recommend washing it at least once a week, as we've got a clear container here and we don't want any algae or anything to have a chance to grow. The other aspect for cleaning is that you can't really get into this grinder, so on about a monthly basis, I'd recommend using about a half cap full of grinds tablets in order to get out any coffee oil that might be building up inside your grinder. If you found this review helpful or just like the information that we talked about, be sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel so we can help get more coffee information out to coffee lovers like you.